Entrepreneurship is hard, so let's fix that and dive into our heroes' journeys. This is Taking Flight, an entrepreneur's journey, and I'm Sarah Tourville. Join me as we delve deep into the passions, expertise, and experiences of those already in flight. This show is sponsored by EO Atlanta. Well, it's great to be here again today. As everybody knows, this EO Atlanta podcast, Taking Flight, is really building steam. We are getting some amazing listeners and watchers. Our lists are growing, which is fantastic. And it all comes down to the quality of the people that we're talking to. And today I have another very phenomenal entrepreneur joining us. I can't wait for him to get into his story. He is an award-winning author, a money energy pioneer, which I cannot wait to unpack. He's an exceptional speaker, and he's passionate about helping people. Executive chairman and founder at DNA Behavior International, I would love to welcome Hugh Massie to the show.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be with you this morning.
It's really good to have you here, Hugh. I'm excited to get into the conversation and unpack your entrepreneurial journey. So, tell me, Hugh, what did you get right when you took your first flight into your entrepreneurial journey?
So I'll start that, Sarah, with the DNA behavior business, because I think that's what I have now and been involved with for a while. And there was a entrepreneurial step before that when I left the accountancy world and set up a wealth management business. But it's sort of that journey is what led me into DNA behavior and the behavioral journey. But I think what did I get right? I think the first thing is it was actually around my identity. And I'm a big believer in everybody that's starting a business is getting your purpose right. And luckily, I was very clear about that at the start, because it's actually what prompted me to start this business in terms of wanting to self-empower people all over the world to have increased behavioral awareness and money consciousness. And we can get into a little bit of why that is important maybe later. So that was one part. I think the other part was just like differentiation. And there are a lot of businesses that are in human behavior. Behavior has been around since Pythagoras, well before BC. But no one has really dealt with operationalizing how you deal with financial behavior, what a person's financial personality is. And even today, 20 years later, when we, serve in some of the markets we do, there are people that talk about behavior and money, but they haven't got a system. Mm-hmm. And I think that to me was a success point. You could say, has my journey been completely successful? No, because I'm still striving to get to the top. And being honest, part of the challenge was actually me. I think it's around product design. I think we've got a very good product that a lot of users use, but keeping it simple has always been a challenge. In part, I think the other issue is that we sort of kept some of the behavioral parts separate from the money parts, so we're almost running two businesses in one, and that hasn't been a good thing. We've combined it all now, and we're getting a lot more acceleration. Mm-hmm. So I think there's some of the big things, and then the other part just comes down to your leadership. Mm-hmm. So if I said the third part is just the leadership, and for each person starting at the top, knowing what their own X factor is, and then delegating everything else, getting clutter away from you, all the processes built in the business, so that things can be monitored, but you don't have to be sort of in the making of all the soup, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I know. I think we've all, especially the ones of us who are part of EO, the EOS model around, doing what you're good at. And, are you the visionary? Are you the integrator? Whatever your role is, and making sure that you really focus on what you're good at. And I think that takes time to be able to do that, because I suppose as as businesses are growing, as we all know, as CEOs of companies, you're doing everything at first. And so you got to get to a certain point in your growth where you can actually say, okay, I now can hire for that, even if it's a fractional, but you've got to do those things, haven't you? As soon as you can do it.
Yeah, I think the traction process is very good, and
Yeah.
getting your business plan distilled down that way, as you say, who is the visionary, who's the integrators, but also I think part of the entrepreneurial journey is with you're learning about yourself the whole way through. You can have the idea up front, but there's always adjustments. Every event that happens teaches you something about yourself that leads to the refinements, and it's a constant. It's a constant review and tweaking, and that's very important. I think even in this very complex, fast-changing world we exist in, that's something that's important.
Yeah. Tell me, if you don't mind, I want to understand, you talked about what you got right as differentiating yourself. Can you just give any advice of how you think you did that?
I follow a process from a book called Play Bigger, and I get other people that work with us who are trying to build a business, because a lot of people build businesses on top of our business, to read that book. And it's really around it's like the Uber story in some ways. There's there's an existing market there, the taxi market, and it's problematic. And now in today's fast-paced world, you want a car on demand, but you don't want to have your own chauffeur. So you call Uber and the car turns up. And Uber has sort of really defined its own market and become the category king. And I think that's really what we've tried to do in human behavior. It's been there. Human beings are human beings. We've all got a personality. I think that's true. No, I don't think it's true. I know it's true. But so there are lots of players in that market, but where can you build a new market that's maybe side by side to that, that's different, and bring that to life? That's really what I have worked on. And we did do that at the start, and just keep on evolving in that area. There's always a challenge though, Sarah, that people don't understand what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point, because I'm a marketing strategist, and and so I consult with a lot of clients. And you're right, sometimes if you want to come up with terminology which is different, and I get it, and that's the ways to differentiate. But then you've got to educate the market, and small companies, obviously, we don't have the cash sometimes to educate the market. So you kind of need the big players to help educate the market, to allow you to come through behind it and be part of that differentiation piece, but slightly different. So there's a challenge, because you got to throw big money at new terminology.
And I've had to do that to some degree. One, coming from running a wealth management business in Australia, coming up with these ideas at a fairly young age. And then coming across to America, getting the technology or the algorithms that we have validated, and then start talking to people. And really today, a lot of our world is in a field called behavioral finance.
Right.
Well, 20 years ago, people didn't really know what that meant.
No.
Including the leaders of these bigger firms. And I've been part of that education process. I think there are others stepping in there and doing that too. Luckily now it's accelerated, so at least it's a conference topic now, if that makes sense.
Well, that's good. So progress is being made, and I love it.
Yeah, progress has been made. A research. People have got a Nobel Prize in the area, so it's the awareness has grown. And when I talk to people now, there's not glazed eyes.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. Okay. Well, look, let me ask you. So who are or were your co-pilots on this journey you've been on and are still on?
Yeah, so the very first co-pilot was when I was asked the question, what was I passionate about? And it suddenly jumped out of my mouth. I wanted to help people become self-empowered, through the behavioral awareness and money consciousness. Now, I'd never said that to anybody. But once I thought about that, like it rocked me really hard. And I thought, I've got to do something about this. And a few months later, I had a chance meeting with an organizational psychologist. And we were talking about actually hiring people. And I said, but, you know, Carol, this is my problem. And she stepped into my world 22 or 3 years ago and is still there.
Wow.
And then she directed me to Atlanta. So I came from Sydney to Atlanta to meet with people here to help get our systems validated. I was very fortunate to meet a man called Lee Ellis, who's also who is based here in Atlanta, who's also mentored me, you know, along the way. So they were the first two, and they're still in my life, a big part of my life.
Love that.
Carol still lives in Australia. And then a while after I started the business, I met a guy called Leon Morales, who is today the company president.
Right.
And he loves behavior. And there's a younger guy, Ryan Scott, who I took out of Georgia Tech as a student. And he's now chief of AI technology for our business. So, you know, I've been very lucky that these people have come along and stuck with it and with me. So
yeah, they believe in you. That's why, Hugh, they believe in you and your leadership. And I love how you talk about, you know, you realize what what you wanted to solve, you know, around empowering people with you know, with finances. And I can feel it from you, like you truly want to enable people to have that. And I think, you know, when you express it like that and people hear it, it's like, no, I mean, yeah, of course it makes so much sense. So
well, yeah, I think that you know, I think part of the challenge is, Sarah, I've been learning more and more about it as I've gone along, although my initial instinct and thought was right, that people treat money, the problem is people treat money as a currency. And so how do we invest it, you know, save it, spend it? It's sort of almost as a physical thing. But actually money has an energy.
Yeah.
And it's there playing on our minds 24/7. When I was younger, I used to run around at parties saying, well, money never sleeps, you know, earn some, put it in the bank and let it grow.
Yeah.
But the deeper wisdom of it is money is in your thoughts 24/7. You take it to sleep with you.
Right.
And you wake up with it. And what you sleep with is what you manifest. And for so many people, money causes stress.
Yeah.
And the bigger problem to be solved is stress. And that is, you know, in a simple way, you could be performing a role that's wrong for you. Like when I was a CPA, I got very stressed just by being in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But money itself is a constant stress for most people, whether they know it or not. And that affects your health and happiness. So that's the bigger, deeper issue actually underneath why I'm doing this.
Yeah. No, it's great. Thank you for sharing that. So what is a challenge you and your team had to solve recently?
Yeah, well, I was alluding to that before at the start. So it's good that you asked that question. And I think it really comes down to product complexity. And, you know, simplifying, you know, we've got 4,000 insights in our system, which people love, but we've got lots of users in different fields who all want something different from us. And I suppose me being the innovator, I've appeased everybody and just kept on, you know, building, you know, new insights and trying to provide that customization for people. But at a point that gets clunky. And so we spent the last 18 months redesigning our system so that it is completely customizable, the technology, for anybody that wants to use it to get what they want out of it, you know, and they can put their own branding colors on their logos, set the screens up to be from our standards to how they want to have it, really just by, you know, a press of a button, as opposed to having to have expensive tech development done. So, you know, we are in a world where people want customized experiences, and the providers of services need a customized experience for them to be able to deliver that to their own clients. And I think that's what we've had to do, and the problem we've had to solve, so that the cost of using us doesn't get out of range, but also the understandability doesn't get too far away either. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So is there a favorite book that you're reading right now? Anything you want to share? I know you mentioned a book at the beginning. You encourage people to always read, your clients to read that particular book. I don't know if that's your favorite book right now.
I'm very big on people getting in touch with their identity. And even though I didn't write this book, I always talk about identity because I think it's the solution to most problems. You've got to get that right as a business owner. How do you want to show up and stand out there in the world? You need to know your identity. And that's a little more than your life purpose. I think that humans are a human being, not a human doing. So if you can get your identity right, that's the first one. There's a book called The Power of Identity by Bill Wursmer. Right. And I encourage people to read that.
Power of Identity. Okay.
There's the Play Bigger book that I mentioned before by Al Ramadan. I think it's good for marketing. But, I'd also encourage people to read a white paper that we've recently written, which will become a book called Money Energy.
Okay.
And you can download that off our website, but that really brings to the front how money impacts all of your life energies, and your longevity, and getting conscious of how you deal with money, because a lot of it's just inbuilt in you. But if you're going to make successful life change, you've got to get conscious. Yeah. That white paper unlocks the problem with science and what to do. Right. But I'm busy turning it into a book as well at the moment, through a blog series we're writing, which will end up being a book. That's fantastic. Okay, so that's exciting. So thank you for sharing those books. So tell me, what excites you about the future? Like, what does your future of flight look like? And I don't mean so much for your business. I mean either for your business or for you, Hugh, in general, as an entrepreneur. Well, I'm someone who's always, looking forward, and I probably, Sarah, addressed that through what comes with with my life purpose. Is a term that I've been using in recent times called the moonshot. So, what's that big dream out there that you're trying to achieve? And we at DNA Behavior are busy working on having a community ecosystem of 1 billion interconnected relationships. Because I think one of the things is as you start your business, you've got to think big, have a big journey planned out or visioned out, but start with small steps. So, we're only probably 5% away along the journey to the 1 billion, but there is an relationships, but there's an acceleration. But I see, because stress is such a problem, we are helping, we're encouraging more and more people to wear a device on their wrist. So like I've got my Whoop band and my Garmin watch. All our leaders, ambassadors are wearing something, and we're all talking about where our stress levels are, heart rate variabilities, and importantly, actually addressing our heart in all of this. And the big awakening for me is the heart is not just a pump, it's actually got a brain itself. The electromagnetic forces of the heart are 60 times the brain. More signals go from the heart up to the brain than the other way by a big factor. So if we want to affect change out there, somehow we've got to do something about our hearts. And it's not just keeping them clean and clear so we don't have a heart attack. That's an issue. But it's actually, how do we use our heart for good, if that makes sense. Yes. So that's probably the part that excites me. Have I got the total solution of how all that happens at mass scale? No, but there are organizations out there, as I'm uncovering it, that are dealing with that. And to me, it's about partnering. I don't need to own all of that. I just want to be a big part of it. Yeah. So you mentioned the heart word quite a bit actually in our conversation, and then I couldn't help but go onto your website. I hope you don't mind. And I see that
looking at your profile, Boys Without Fathers Mentor. Is that a little bit part of this kind of what excites you about the future? That sounds amazing. I'd love to know more about
You
that.
almost actually, for some reason, you almost made me cry when you brought that up.
Well, I was reading it, and I mean, again, you've used the word heart a lot in this conversation already, and I love that. So I wanted to learn a bit more, and so that to me sounds amazing. So please share that with me.
Well, I've been, so to sort of give you this quick story on this, I've been doing identity conversations, like podcasts, sort of a little bit like what we're doing now with a lot of our clients.
Right.
And in 2021, I had 6 clients within about a 2-month period that all had grown up without a dad.
Right.
And I was one, and so I'm the 7th, if you want to call it that, and including Leon, who's on our team.
Yeah,
and there were my dad died when I was 1. Mum was pregnant with my younger brother, so he didn't even, have a father at all. I had a father for a year, but it has enormous impacts on you psychologically, your ability to learn. And I discovered why I had all these challenges through these other people, and they had been doing research on it. And so we decided to get together, and we have formed the Boys Without Fathers charitable organization. And in fact, we've got Girls Without Fathers and the whole matrix, because the issues for girls is different, right?
Right.
But so we sort of addressing them singularly, but there's a family of this work being done, because somebody said to me many years ago, Hugh, the problem for you is you didn't have someone to mentor you as a father figure. And that was a big drive as part of this business as well, that I've always wanted to mentor kids, between 16 and 25 to get on the right track.
Yeah.
And with Boys Without Fathers, actually, we've got to do some of it before they're 12. Otherwise, too much damage done. I was lucky, probably I had a strong mother.
Yeah.
But so this is a big part of sort of, if you want to call it, the heart and the social impact work that we've baked into our business. And luckily, there are a whole group of people that we've got around us that are very well equipped to do this work.
That's incredible. Okay. I love that you're doing that. Very, very good indeed. So many exciting things happening. I love the fact you're driving forward with your heart too. And it's going to be an exciting journey, continue to be an exciting journey. So I want to learn more about who you are, Hugh. So pre-flight, you talked a little bit, actually. You're coming from Sydney. You had a very strong mother, which is wonderful. But tell me, what are some key milestones for you before you actually took your entrepreneurial flight?
Yeah, so just sort of as a, life history, I went at 9 years old, I went to an all boys boarding school. So you learn a lot of independence from that.
Yeah.
I got every opportunity in the world to learn everything, experience stuff, whether I probably have some regrets that I didn't do some things better when I was there. I wasn't naughty. I just, maybe didn't push myself in areas that I could have.
Yeah.
But I think a big shift for me came just after leaving school, when I became a lifeguard, which I did for 7 years. It's weekend work on the beach. I loved it. I loved swimming, the environment of that. Golf was always, and cricket are big things for me. So anything with a ball.
Yeah.
I love cricket's a big part of our family. My great grandfather played the first game for Australia.
Right.
So, in fact, we've done charitable work for the Sydney Cricket Ground, all the way through that, even until recently. So those things really get me. I've got a 10-year-old son, believe it or not, is playing in an Atlanta cricket team.
Right.
So that gets me playing again.
Yeah,
the whole
wonderful.
thing. That's me. So I do love those sports. I haven't got in love with all the American sports, so I'm still stuck at golf. And that's probably my big thing is golf. But I also help a I play tennis, and I help a guy, Enoch Godey, with Hope Performance Tennis, where we help him raise money so that he can get kids in Ghana learning to play tennis and get them off the streets and build character, get a life opportunity. So that's something that lights my fire. So I think, again, it comes back to a little bit to the boys without fathers as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay. So you kind of answered this next question a little bit, but I was just wondering whether there's any case studies you want to share. And what I want to ask you, like, what problem do you solve and what impact have you made? And I know from our conversation around how you, like you say, you're empowering people to kind of have financial freedom. If you're sleeping with money on our mind, let's not wake up hopefully nervous and anxious. And so, over the years of you doing this, have you been able to see it kind of really filter through to people and make a big difference?
Well, as a company, we've served or serve indirectly or directly or indirectly about 2 million people a year. So at the moment, I want to get that number up, but I of course don't see it for everybody, but I have seen, marriages saved, if you want to call it that, because we've provided the mental freedom to have the conversation about money. Families, I've stopped the family war coming, and this is always a big issue of how money is passed down in a family, by getting everybody to have a conversation and at least be able to sit around the Thanksgiving table and not throw bricks at each other, for the rest of their lives. Or somebody make a career switch and, take that chance, maybe not take as much money, but take that chance on something that's going to allow them to flourish. So I see those as the big things. I've been inspiring a lot of people recently. I sort of notionally joined what's called the 120 Club. So it's all about longevity, living to 120. So I've been impacting a lot of people to think differently about, themselves, their life, stress, and act in a more, or operate in a more healthy way to live longer, but also to live better. For longer. I think that's the end of it. The important part is to be happy. I think if I've done anything, I believe I've increased a lot of people's happiness factor by giving them some mental freedom.
I think you definitely have. I think there's probably so many examples, but those examples are great. So, and the 120, I've never heard someone talk about that 120 goal. My husband always says he wants to live till he's 100. And we've always kind of I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I want to live till I'm 100, but why not? Let's shoot for 120. Let's be healthy.
Well, I've been part of this mastermind group, if you want to call it that, called Abundance 360 for the past year or so. And Peter Diamandis in there, talks about these things, but I was already on the track. I think that what he probably inspired me to do was put a number on it. And now I read the science every day of what you can do. But what, Sarah, it all comes back to, you will live 7 or 8 years longer if you have a clear purpose. Friends, if you look at what you drink, what you eat, all these things don't cost any money to do.
No.
And you can live a whole lot longer. And I have actually reduced my biological age by 14 years. So I am 58, believe it or not. But physically, I'm 44.
Right.
And that is just from tweaks to how I live that have been made over the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So this can be done, but I think science is going to allow it to happen. But you want to be able to have a quality of life on that journey. The last thing you want to do is live to 120, but the last 30 is in a wheelchair. That's no.
No. All righty. So
it's all in the mind, Sarah. It's all in the mind.
Yeah, you got me thinking. You got me thinking. Got me thinking about what I ate for breakfast.
And I've learned if you set big goals and you miss them by 10 or 20%, doesn't matter. You're still 50% ahead of where you were or would be anyway, right?
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm just playing that one through in my mind. I'm going to go away. And
all right, I'm good. I'm glad I've got you to.
You got me
go away and think about something.
Yes, and that's the whole point of this podcast. If we can just share one really good insight or just tip for anyone, and I would say, I mean, you've shared so much, Hugh, but I love that. Like, if we make small changes in our life, like, how do we just improve our quality of life? And you talk about having a clear purpose and passion. I definitely agree with you. I think that's what drives. That's what we wake up in the morning excited about something. And if you take that away, what does that look like? What does your day look like? What does your next year look like? And I love that about entrepreneurs, because I feel like the reason why we deal with the ups and downs is because we constantly see our purpose and we're driven by it. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. And we've got to make sure we as entrepreneurs keep in touch with it.
Yeah.
And, it's easy, I think, to lose sight of what your purpose is. I think along my journey in the last 20 years since I started DNA, I've got myself distracted with other stuff. I don't think it helps. I think it's too easy as an entrepreneur to think, okay, I can conquer that mountain too.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not sure that it can really be done successfully. I mean, okay, Elon Musk.
Well, he has this, I don't know. Try unpacking him. I wouldn't even want to.
Right, but you don't know what his life is like underneath, and you look at Steve Jobs, and this is the point I raise to a lot of people. Okay, he impacted all of our lives, but he died at 56 years old. Do you want to be that?
Early. No.
And these are the choices. So I come back a lot to essentialism now, and what is important for me to do to live within my purpose and honor my family and those types of things, and the rest will come. I
love that so much. Okay, I love this next question. I think everyone knows how much I love this next question. So this is our introspection question. If you were to do this all over again, would you do it over again?
Yes.
My earring fell out, sorry.
Absolutely. Okay. But if I had known quite what would happen, I may not have. But I can remember sitting in my office in Sydney, in the chair, reflecting before I really went on this path, going to America. Because if I didn't do this, I would have stayed in the wealth management business and particularly done real estate investing. But I knew if I didn't try and put myself completely out there in the world and have that chance of going for the moonshot, I would regret it. And if that means, going bankrupt and having zero, that's what it is. And at some point you got to take that chance, and that might be giving up something, but this is part of what I call quantum living. You've got to step through and take that big risk, I think. And so I wouldn't make any changes to it. I've met wonderful people, great opportunities, and there's been some moments I'd rather I didn't have, but who hasn't had those?
It's called living. Part of life.
It's called living, and you've got to put yourself out there and test every boundary. That's the thing.
No, I agree. You said something though. You said something like, if I had known how it would turn out, I might not have done it. What does that mean?
Well, I think if you sit there and you knew what every event was going to be, and you could see
the path, and the rocks,
exactly the path, it may stop you, right?
I agree.
And just because knowing those things would I think if you sort of know that you're going to go out driving in a fast car, a Formula One car, and there's 9 out of 10 chance you're going to put it up against the wall, are you going to, because the track's slippery, are you going to go out? Probably not.
No, you're right. I hear what you're saying now. And there's no way of knowing what I think that path's going to look like.
It's not for everybody to go, and not everybody is going to go and live that way, where they're going to give up what they know, their normal community, their circle of friends, the things they're used to doing, going out of that safety zone. It isn't for everybody. You know, our research, Sarah, on entrepreneurs, I did a study a few years ago of 500 EOers and other entrepreneurs. And the number one trait is resilience, you know, and this is, it's something, it is measurable. It's also a mindset, but you've got to have that.
Yeah.
That's non-negotiable. And I think that's a part of this.
I could speak to you for hours, Hugh. Oh my God, I can't wait to see you at an event. I need to sit down and chat with you more. So you're honestly, you're putting my Friday on a very good mode for happiness. So thank you for that. I hope everyone else feels the same. But I'd love to ask you, how can people connect with you?
So the best way is you can email me at hugh.massie@dnabehavior.com, or go to our website at dnabehavior.com and have a look around. Maybe get the Money Energy white paper that's there in the resources area and read it. And feel free to ask me any questions. I love to help people and unlock them. Yeah.
And there's a book coming out, it sounds like.
There will be another book coming out later in the year. On money energy. But if you want to sort of address leadership and your behavior, there's Leadership Behavior DNA sitting there. It's a great book on it too.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Hugh, for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah. I really enjoyed this. It's been great.
Yeah, I've loved it. So thank you also to our audience. Like I say, please, if you know of anyone you think would really benefit from hearing from our entrepreneurs of Atlanta, hearing their stories and listening to their advice, and please do share this podcast with your friends, with your colleagues. We really appreciate as much gossip as we can create about the EO Atlanta Taking Flight podcast. Thank you again, Hugh.
Thank you, Sarah. It's been great. Thanks for all you're doing for EO Atlanta.
You're welcome. It's been another really exciting episode of EO Atlanta's Taking Flight, and I look forward to seeing everyone next time. And so that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at takingflight.live. For more information about EO Atlanta, visit eoatlanta.org. Special thanks to the following sponsors: